tricky pin position there. On that left-hand side, you miss it left, like he did on 18. That's when he made a mistake, and it cost him nearly a double bogey. There are times to back off, and that on that 9th hole, I like the fact that he did back off, hit it 25 feet when the pin is tucked in like it did. Watching him a lot as we do, I really thought he was not far off really firing. I would have a little bit of a worry, though. Maybe hopefully he can prove me wrong, that if it does get fiery and fast around here, that he stays in the hunt, because they're not normally the conditions he excels in.
Yeah, I just can't imagine that it's going to get fiery and fast enough for that to be that kind of issue. The issue that I had with Rory coming into this week was, look, he had really good numbers, strokes gained approach, and really pitiful numbers, greens, and regulation. That tells me that he's hitting a mix of tremendous iron shots and a mix of very poor iron shots. There was like really nothing in between, and pretty much all day long, I thought he was spot on. It's the shot that hit into the 18th that I have seen so much from him this year. He's hit that drive too often, where he's just going and going and going, and then pulls it and then pulls it and then hits the iron and pulls it. So, except for the shot on the 18th hole, it was pretty much a day that I hadn't seen from Rory in a long, long time.
That's my point.
And been really expecting to see.
That's my point, Brandel. Absolutely. That was the 18 was probably the only bad shot he hit all day.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, lot to see. There's so many guys up there. Looks like it's a race at the moment. It's a race, dare we say it, it's a race to 20 under par. I know John doesn't want that. I certainly don't want that. I want that back to the DNA of what a US Open is. But look, it is what it is. Hopefully the man above, his golfing gods, are going to make it a little bit drier, a little bit faster, a little bit more challenging than it was today, because I really want to see these guys tested. So often we see them in these tests where they're able to dismantle a golf course and disarm a golf course off the tee with the prodigious distance they hit it, and then they get wedge in their hands. I mean, Rory hit a wedge into every par 4 today except one. That's the kind of distance. I know he's the longest hitter in there, well, him and Wyndham Clark, but one of the longest hitters. But that's what they can do. And your point was a brilliant one about how angles, we all love to hear this angles, and it sounds great and it's wonderful. And maybe back in the day, angles were really important. But do really angles matter when you got a wedge in your hand into soft greens, got a little bit of a backdrop?
No,
not really.
They don't.
And that's a shame. And that's a shame about the modern game. And going back to the rollback, and me and you argue on this. And,
well, look, it's interesting you said that you wouldn't like to see a score get to 20 under. John obviously agreed with you. That kind of thinking, it just blows me away. When I see a pitcher and they're playing with the same equipment, and 7-fold or 8-fold more of them are throwing 95 miles an hour, or when I see batters and they're playing with the same equipment and more and more of them are hitting them out of the park, or when in basketball, I don't know, they're pretty much playing with the same equipment, are they not, Rich? Last time I checked, and are they better basketball players now than they were 40 years ago?
They are. I mean, Bob Cousy, as good as he was a 6'1" point guard. Magic Johnson played the same position at 6'9". Just better, faster, bigger.
Right. In every other sport where players run faster and they hit more threes and they dunk more and they throw it faster and we applaud the athlete. We applaud the fact that they get better. It's only golf. And I looked, I went back and I looked at the scoring here. 75 years ago, the professional golfers were doing the exact same thing to Riviera that it appears like the players are doing right here. Nobody had ever shot lower than 281 going into the U.S. Open 75 years ago at Riviera. And what did Ben Hogan and Jimmy DeMeritt and a fellow by the name of Joe Trinessa do? All three of them shot better than 281. Ben Hogan shot 276. I read some of the columns today that were written after he shot 276. Not a single column in there commented about how easy the course was or how equipment was mitigating the great design of past architects. It was just nothing but lauding the architects. So that's my question to you.
Yeah, my answer to you is, I'm not going to in any way say that the modern player is a supreme athlete and they've got more speed than they've ever had before. But golf courses are having to be stretched back week after week after week.
But they don't have
7,400 yards long.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they played off 7,100 yards long today, what was the scoring would have been like? If they hadn't adjusted it, they're always having to stretch golf courses back to make the adjustments, because technology plays a huge part. In baseball, the bat is the bat. There's not a lot of technology goes into the bat. But in a golf club and a golf ball, there's a massive amount of technology that goes in. And that's elevated and elevated. And you've got these unbelievably brilliant scientists in technology that have outsmarted a lot of the governing bodies over the years to make a golf ball go faster and faster and faster. Combined with the athlete, now you've got the explosion. And I think it's a shame that it's gone. And I'm for the rollback, because it's not going back to the 40, 50 yards back. We're looking at rolling the top players back only 15 yards. That makes a difference, Brandel. So rather than going in, I mean...
Let me just push back a little bit, Okay?
Oh.
So
I knew that was coming.
So if we fall in love with architecture that existed 120 years ago, and of course I do too, it's beautiful. This golf course is maybe one of the best. If it's not the top 10 in the world, I don't know what is. It's gorgeous. But that's for the members and for recreational golfers that come here to enjoy this great design and a throwback to a previous era. But since the game has progressed so much, and again, they are faster, they all taller, they know how to recruit speed out of their body. Don't you think that it would be time, if it was your goal to test the best players, to not generally rely on a philosophy that existed 120, 140 years ago when the game was much, much harder for everybody? So, for example, I'm thinking of the TPC Sawgrass, which is not 7,400 yards long, and none of the best players can figure out how to play it. It is completely dependent upon present form and great strategy and turn points. And I'm not saying even that's the answer, but if we continue to go back to architecture 140 years ago, instead of trying to recreate something else, some other kind of architecture, some other kind of setup that is designed to test the best players in the world. Of course, it depends upon the objective. When he went to set up the TPC Sawgrass, Pete Dye, it was not to test recreational golfers or the members. It was to test the best players in the world. And by and large, that golf course is 40 some odd years old, and it stood up to that test. So I guess my question is, don't you think it's time for a new philosophy of architecture to come along that is designed to test the best players in the world, so you don't have to roll the golf ball back and you can just applaud them?
I mean, what way did you say that? I mean, the only way that I think that can happen, and the biggest game changer in terms of making a golf course difficult is when it gets firm. Nothing else really works for these guys. They're so good.
Oh, wait a minute.
You can make it 8,000 yards long.
Narrow fairways, thick rough, and trees that
trees granted.
Things, I know there's
trees
such
granted.
a deforestation
Absolutely.
movement in the game of golf. I don't understand it.
Yeah. Trees get it. You know, when you hit it into a rough and you're behind a tree, much different story. These guys are, taking out the trees for agronomic reasons, whatever it is. That certainly makes it easier. I agree with that absolutely. But none of us want to see the rough cabbage like this.
Well, not for recreational player members, never. Of course not. But if players can swing so much
for
faster
professional
now,
golf, I don't think it's much fun to watch that kind of.
But you don't think
rough
holding
like
them
this.
accountable for a miss is important, at least in a U.S. Open?
Yeah,
that's the way it used to be.
I think I would just love to see. I mean, if I was able to create something, I would love to see a golf course dry out really fast. Have some kind of technology that would dry out a golf course really, really fast, because that's what makes it. Then you only need rough like this, Brandel. Then the flyers come back in again. The ball comes down with no spin, and now it's out of control. When you make it as soft as it is, and if the man above doesn't comply and gives you marine layers and stuff,
but
these guys are so good.
This is not the first time it's been slightly soft at a U.S. Open. It's not the first time.
Yeah, well, maybe all the money should go into drying out golf courses. Create this new system that's going to dry out a golf course like a.
Let's go down to Craig's and let's keep the conversation going down at Craig's. Brad Pitt, Jennifer Lawrence could walk in. We wouldn't notice.
We were there a couple nights ago.
We'll be talking about the rollback, right? We had a good time there last night. By the way, Brooks Koepka played alongside Rory today, PGA Championship winner. He shot one over. He is 9 shots back of the lead.